Okay, everyone, welcome to Chenrezig practice. It's so good to see everyone here. Happy Sunday. And for those of you who are new, I am Lama. I use he, him pronouns. I am living and teaching on the ancestral lands of the Muskogee Creek and Cherokee people here in Atlanta. And so wonderful to have you here. Our practice is, it will be just a guided practice. And, I tend to think of Chenrezig as being very gentle um, in terms of practice. But, who knows what gentle means? Gentle is so subjective, as well. I think the practice of awakening to deep love and care can actually be quite intense for some of us, right? I think many of us we have real trauma around loving, and being cared for and then extending care, right? Which makes these, practices for some of us really quite difficult. And of course, many of us are survivors of conditional love, which is really quite an intense form of love, of course, because it's really about having to, become other than ourselves, or to become something that's really not authentic in order to get the care and the support that we need. So we start performing, right? I see so many people who are just lost in the performance, and that performance is something that I don't actually am not sensitive to. Like, I think that's why I can disrupt people in the way that I do, because I don't really get distracted by performance, but I just go right to the core of things, or to the most authentic expression of folks, right? And you get there through, I think, compassion. Compassion, I think, is this vehicle that we use to connect to people, right? To connect and cut through the ways in which we feel as if we can't reveal or expose our true selves because of the risk, right, that comes with that kind of authenticity right now. So we hide that, we perform, right? I think so many people try to impress me, and I'm just like, everyone's impressive, right? You're a human, and you're here and you're practicing. That's wonderful, right? But beyond that, I don't know what people are expecting from me, like a parade or a cookie or something. Um, so in so many ways, like we can't really experience the kind of fruition in our practice, or the kind of liberation that we're interested in, until we let go of those performances, right? Until we start looking at and addressing all the ways in which we have kind of bought into performing, because we know that if we don't perform, then maybe we won't get the resources that we need from people to be well, right? And of course, the huge risk here, not the risk of practice itself, but a risk initially is actually naming the performance and letting it go, right? Or slowly resting that performance and starting to slowly awaken to or expand into our most authentic self, right? Our most authentic expressions, in the world. And that can be really shocking when we start doing that, when you say, oh, whoever you thought I was, I'm actually not that, like this is my true self. Like, when we start making those decisions, we risk losing a lot. We risk losing relationships, access to resources, other resources, relationships, so, so forth and so on, right? Because everyone else, including ourselves, we're constructing a sense of self based upon what we're perceiving from others, right? So I don't know who I am until I figure out who you are. And when you change, then my sense of self has been disrupted, right? And then that disruption feels really uncomfortable. And then I start reacting to that discomfort in ways that may not be skillful, you know? If I can't figure out who you are, then I feel really uncomfortable, and then I conflate that discomfort with being unsafe. And if I'm unsafe, I need to protect myself and maybe erase the person or the situation where I feel as if where I'm being threatened, you know. And so much of this is what we're seeing in the world right now. Instead of tending to our own deep insecurities about who we are, who we think we are, we bypass the suffering of that insecurity and try to erase what we think or who we think is the cause of that discomfort, which we also interpret as being unsafe. There's no liberation through bypassing anything, right? Like if you want to get free, you're going to have to love everything, even the things that seem impossible to love, right? And of course, when we say love, we're not talking about liking, we're not talking about celebrating, we're talking about this deep, intense acceptance of what is, right? Like you have to accept it, and if you need to change it, then of course maybe you start changing things, which is moving from reactivity to responsiveness. But you can't change anything until you've learned to accept the reality of the thing itself and say, oh, this is happening, right? And if it doesn't need to be happening, then I can make a choice, or a different choice, right? But in terms of freedom, right? Freedom, like, it means that, like, this reality and everything that arises phenomenally in this reality, not just things we perceive as being other than ourselves, but everything in terms of our bodies and sensations and thoughts and emotions and so forth, everything actually has to be held in this equal holding, this very spacious, expansive holding where we're not reacting, but just allowing, right? This is a very subtle kind of teaching, but it's also imperative. Like this is an imperative teaching, which takes time and practice to work through for ourselves, right? Because when I say, well, you have to accept everything, which is an expression of loving everything, then you say, well, there's this, and that in the world that I will never accept, And again, when I say accept, I'm not telling you to like anything. There's intense violence in the world right now. I don't like that, but I have to name that it's happening. Right. And of course, when you acknowledge that something's happening, then you move into the space of experiencing, right, the discomfort around acknowledging these things, right? And what does that mean for us? Now, maybe that's different for everyone, but I think we avoid this really imperative practice of accepting because we don't want to deal with experiencing, right, the energy of what we're naming, the heartbreak, the disappointment, the rage, the despair, the hopelessness of everything that we're perceiving, right? If you don't do that, then like you're bypassing something, right? And you can't really experience liberation, ultimate liberation, if everything isn't being liberated through acceptance, right? And so many of us, in the world right now, and if you're like me, there are many people in my life who are just like not even dealing with the world anymore. And some of you may be, in that space where you can't even deal. I was talking with a mentor of mine a couple of days ago. We were talking about this, and they were just saying that like they can't even watch the news anymore, right? They just like can't do that, right? Um, and I get that, and that's about setting boundaries, but we can set the boundaries, we can create space to take care of ourselves, but ultimately, like we have to come back into a real straightforward engagement and holding of everything, that we're avoiding, you know. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't take the space and time to train and practice to develop the capacity to be in relationship with the things that we habitually avoid. That's what practice is, right? But the goal of our practice should be a re-engagement, right? A direct relationship with the things, right? That seem really difficult. This is also a part of our personal healing, you know. Like everything has to be held, everything has to be tended to, everything must be open to receiving love, all the trauma, the pain, the memories, everything we've survived, all of that has to be held and tended to, right? And it's not to say, right, that, like all this has to be done in this life. It's difficult, right? But we have, uh, a succession of lives, to do this work. And what I believe is that I want to do as much work as possible in this life. I may not get enlightened, but there are certain things that I'm not interested in taking forward in the future lifetime. Like there are things that need to be resolved and tended to, because I don't want to deal with it again. And that's a really wonderful way to approach like reincarnation and future lives. Is like, this is the work that I have to do. I'm going to do as much as I can, and of course, if we commit to the work, right? And particularly if we commit to deep loving and compassion and holding the work, then we don't have to worry about getting a chance or not to do this work in another future lifetime, particularly a future lifetime. Being born as like a human, for instance, and having the capacity to do this intensive spiritual work to get free. If you're committed to the work now, you're creating the conditions to continue that work, right? It's when we're not really so intentionally invested in this work in this life where it begins to be really tricky, in terms of our transition, out of this life, and then the kind of rebirth into a life form or a kind of life, right, where we have the tools and the resources to continue this work. It gets a little tricky, you know. Um, and the only thing that I do is just work. I do work, I do labor, right? I do the simple practices of awakening compassion and love, tending to as much as I can tend to, holding space for everything, right? And then choosing to reduce violence and harm against myself and others as much as possible. If you just do that, you'll be fine. It doesn't have to be so complicated. I think sometimes many of us shut down around the anxiety of not really knowing what's next, instead of just coming back to the moment and asking, what am I doing right now, right, to awaken love and compassion and care? What am I doing right now to reduce harm for myself and for others, right? What am I mourning right now? Am I really like investing energy and holding space for the grief, right? Or am I just pushing things to the side, pushing things, over into the corner, because that's not liberation work, right? So I think Chenrezig, as a practice to awaken compassion, love, and so forth, is a resource that helps us to learn how to gently lean into the work that we need to do in order to get free. And as we do that, we change. We become more ourselves. We become less dependent on the validation of others, right? As Lady Gaga is saying, in her, I would say an album that I loved, but everyone's, really hated, which was pop art. I live for the applause, which was a staggering, brilliant song, as a comment on the ways in which we find ourselves super attached to the validation of others. But, you don't have to keep living for applause. Like I don't live for applause. I don't live for the attention that I get. I don't live for any of that. I love, I am living to embody love, to embody care, right? My practice is centered in everything. And because of that, everything else begins to line up, right? Everything else begins to work out in ways in ways I'm deeply grateful for, right? If you do the work, that work has a vibration or it has a ripple effect, and so whatever you're doing to awaken compassion and love for yourself, it begins to impact everyone that you're connected to. It begins to impact your ancestors. It begins to impact your descendants. It begins to impact those in relationship with you right now, right? Because yes, we're practicing for ourselves, but really we're practicing for everyone. So when I sit and do practice, when I sit and do a practice like Chenrezig, I'm saying, you know what, this is for me, but it's for everyone to get free, right? And that's the most important intention that we can awaken in our practice, is that I am doing this for everyone, including myself, right? I'm doing this for everyone, including myself. So some of you struggle because you're like, I don't do enough for people, I'm not Dr. King or like whomever, we want to be Mother Teresa. These are just like broad cliche people, but like whoever your hero is, as we talk about in Free Radicals every month, it's like who's your hero? Like who are you inspired by, right? Like we don't have to have this kind of intense impact in the world where everyone knows our name, right? We won't ever be a Greta Thunberg, right? I know you all love her. So it's that we're not gonna be a Greta Thunberg, or for me, I won't ever be Beyonce, but I can practice, right? I can learn how to pay attention to where I need to be doing work, and I can go there to that front line of my work and do my work, and everyone connected to me, my, partners, lovers, friends, family, whomever it may be, like they will benefit from whatever I can do to reduce suffering for myself and to awaken compassion and love. Like if you can just reorient like that, you will see a tremendous, profound, like practice for yourself, right? Where people, people may not applaud you, but they will notice, right? They will say, oh, like you're so much more gentle, or you're clearer, or you're less anxious, right? Or something like that, right? It's easier to be with you. It's because you've invested this work in practice, right? So let's begin, let's move into, a little bit of practice. And I just want, like, I know many of you are professional practitioners. No, I get that. I see that. But I just want us to be at ease in our practice, So that's the first thing I want you to reflect on as we enter into, you know, like awakening the consciousness of Chenrezig in the session, like, what does it mean for me to be at ease? And am I performing something, right? It may be easier for those of you who have your cameras off, but like my aspiration as we begin practice is for you to figure out what it means to be at ease, to find yourself in a position that feels appropriate for you to connect to this experience of care for your body. Or another way of saying that, what does it look like for me to care for my body as we begin this practice? And this is a space, like when we ask questions like this, when we ask about the care of other things or other people or beings, then this is the space from which Chenrezig awakens, right? And what does care for your body feel like as well right now? What does it mean to allow the body to experience its most natural, authentic state? And being at ease doesn't necessarily mean that I am free from discomfort, right? But when we say ease, it means that, yes, I'm just allowing my body to be right now. I'm acknowledging that I am embodied. And I'm letting go of what I think is appropriate or acceptable and privileging what my body needs right now. Just a few more moments here before we continue. This is really important. So I want you to take time here to allow your body to experience ease, to care for my body by allowing my body to be at ease. Noticing experiences of comfort and discomfort. Practicing holding space for both of these experiences of comfort and discomfort by not reacting, but just noticing. Trusting yourself right now to move at your own pace or to practice at your own speed. So if you're not really, if you don't have the capacity right now to really be in a relationship with your body right now, then don't do it. Shift your attention outward to sound, to something else that's tangible. And practice is really important that we always know that we have agency to make choices that are appropriate for us, that maybe are more caring for ourselves than what we're perceiving in the instructions that someone's offering us in practice. Again, a few more moments here. So much of our experience of authenticity begins with the body, right? It begins with how we're moving through the world, how our physical self is being shaped, right? And judged or viewed or celebrated or not celebrated, but the body is this expression that we're trying to liberate from everyone else's perceptions and redirect care for ourselves back to our bodies, to allow our bodies to manifest in a way that is rooted in authenticity and who I really believe I am. But authenticity also in this context means that I am allowing myself to arise in a way that's most liberated for me, most freeing, a way that I feel deeply content, happy, joyful. And we figure that out. And then we all have to make choices around how to negotiate how our most authentic, liberated expressions may or may not come with consequences from others. And that's not something that, well, that's something that we have to figure out individually for ourselves. What we're able to hold, how we're able to balance the risks that we take being free and what feels like an unfree world. And now we'll slowly transition, move a little bit deeper into the practice and begin to awaken this energy of deep acceptance, right? And of course, we're getting deeper and deeper, or opening rather, more and more to this spacious, liberatory consciousness of Chenrezig, right? And again, Chenrezig, their name in Tibetan meaning great eye. So what that really is communicating is that there is the capacity of this deity to see and hold everything. And that being the most profound expression of love, to see and hold everything. But to get closer to this experience, I invite you to actually call to mind someone who has allowed you to be, or rather not allowed, but supported you in being or becoming your most authentic self. And this person, it can just be one experience where someone supported you in your authenticity somehow. But bringing that person right into mind, or maybe reflecting on that experience where someone maybe gave you permission to be your most authentic self, who saw you and said, I see you, and how that perhaps was such a transformative experience of freedom for you. And I wonder if you can reignite this experience of feeling liberated or free when someone saw you and supported you in your authenticity. What does that feel like in your mind? Perhaps what does it feel like in your body? This being seen and supported is not just an expression of love, but for me, it is also the blessing of Chenrezig. It is the expression of Chenrezig to see everything, to hold everything, and to allow us to simply be without judgment, without policing, just to be seen and allow ourselves to be. And for some of us, maybe we don't have those experiences yet, or we can't call to mind those experiences. But instead, I wonder if you can imagine what that could be like to be seen, to be held, and how freeing that could be, to be allowed to be your most authentic self. And our authentic selves are rooted within our awakened natures, within our Buddha natures, within the essence of our minds, the nature of our minds, right? So when authenticity is seen as being rooted within our awakened nature, then it is also an expression that reduces harm and violence. Someone's authentic nature isn't to create harm and violence, right, for others. It's to actually experience space and fluidity and freedom, a connectivity to all beings. That's authenticity. And the style through which we express that authenticity through expressions of gender or different beliefs or spiritual paths and so forth, that's the style in which we're choosing to experience this authenticity. But the core of this authenticity is my awakened nature that is expressed through the relative, through identity, and that everything becomes an expression of deep connectedness and care and love and so forth, everything that we've been exploring so far. So who are you is the question here. Who are you? So we're connecting, right? This experience of being seen and allowed with, our most authentic self, which is an extension of our awakened natures. Just a few more moments here. And so in this space, I invite you to awaken gratitude. So gratitude for being seen, gratitude for whatever you've done to allow yourself to maybe experience a little bit of authenticity and freedom and space. And awakening that gratitude. And sometimes this gratitude can be for others, right, who we're seeing and perceiving as being their most authentic selves. So we can have gratitude for others, practicing freedom for us and inspiring us on this path. But allowing this gratitude to awaken, this gratitude also for the things that you're already doing to choose freedom and authenticity. And imagining that gratitude, the energy of gratitude awakening in the heart center. And to go even further, I invite you to imagine breathing in and out of the heart center. And as we're breathing into the heart center, breathing into this energy of gratitude, as if we're breathing into a flame, and that breath begins to feed this flame and to allow it to grow within the heart center. We're going to shift the breath just slightly now. And so as we breathe into the heart center, awakening this energy of gratitude in the heart center, we're going to release the breath internally. So this is called an internal breath. So we breathe into the heart center, feeling gratitude grow. And then as we exhale, we imagine exhaling out into the body. So it's as if the breath is just expanding from the heart center, carrying this energy of gratitude throughout the body. So inhaling into the heart center, exhaling throughout the whole body, feeling this dispersing and expansion of this energy of gratitude. And optionally, for those of you who feel really grounded in breath, you know, you can go a little further if you choose to. And so that when you inhale into the heart center, you imagine holding that breath in the heart center for how long feels appropriate for you. Maybe initially 3 to 5 seconds, right? And after those seconds, again, releasing that breath internally. And what that holding of the breath does is actually intensify the concentration of these energies, right? Energy of gratitude being a prana energy or a pranic energy. So holding the breath in the heart center intensifies the collection of that gratitude pranic energy. It sinks deeper into the heart center, the heart chakra, gets the heart chakra even more activated. And then releasing the breath, you're releasing a deeper, more concentrated energy throughout the body. So only practice this if you feel grounded and resourced. If you feel dizzy or disoriented, just take a breath, come back to a natural breath, right? And any dizziness, disorientation is just a natural part of working with this energy and the breath like this. But again, if you're not feeling resourced, then just stay with the practice of the breath that feels appropriate. And slowly, what we've been doing is just really awakening, or rather, the better term here is attuning to the frequency or the consciousness of Chenrezig here. So we're opening to this consciousness, this space, this emptiness, but this kind of space and emptiness is an expression of this particular kind of care from Chenrezig. And so as you continue the practice, I want to invite us not to necessarily openly chant Om Mani Padme Hum, but I want us to actually hum it, right? To actually hum the mantra, and that's going to have a different kind of impact energetically through the vibration of this humming of Chenrezig's mantra. And just pay attention. But as you pay attention, right, continue to do this basic practice of just allowing yourself to be in this space, this openness, this fluidity. And let the experience, if you can, be an experience of just deep gentleness, deep care. When something arises, right, I wonder if you can offer this experience back into this boundless consciousness of Chenrezig. So whatever arises, I offer it back to the deity. And so we'll begin Om Mani Padme Hum, but again, chanting, and I may do some really soft drumming, depending on the energy. Okay. We'll begin. Mm, 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 mm. If you haven't already, just coming back into a very natural breath, right? And shifting your attention just to your seat and the weight of your body making contact with the seat. Just letting go of any kind of visualization or doing anything and allowing the mind just to rest openly. So allowing thoughts, emotions, sensations to come and go, allowing the mind through awareness to just expand and to hold all phenomena. And when you're ready, returning your attention back to the weight of your body, making contact with the seat. And from there, actually reawakening your body through some simple movements, maybe some deep breaths. Just allowing ourselves just to come back into the space. And we'll just have the next 10 minutes for any questions that you would like to offer.
Folks are welcome to raise their hands or to unmute yourselves and go ahead and feel free to speak freely.
Mama Rod, can you hear me?
Yes.
I felt a little pushback in my heart, like allowing all that gratitude
Mhm.
came in very strong, and I felt pushback, and I felt and saw some of the things that allowed me to push back that I hold on to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the work is letting that gratitude dissolve that pushback, in a way flood that pushback.
I just held on to that, and it was when you started to hum
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not sure if I bypassed it or let it go. I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you'll figure it out too, like definitely. But when we let go of some of that resistance, there's often some type of deep release as well that we may feel.
But it existed in the same time. Like I felt tingly, but I
Mhm.
felt that pushback. It was sort of sharp and hurting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also because like we're digging into this energetic expression of everything. So like there's the narrative and then there's the energy of the narrative, right? And so sometimes like it's hard for us to actually understand what the narrative has to do with the energy. So sometimes we let go of that, right? And just say, oh, here's the energy of the narrative. I don't get it, but here it is, right? And it's deep. Like this is like really deep work. And that's why also why we hummed, because humming actually gets us deeper. Like it's very subversive, I would say, and it helps us to go inward a lot more than just like openly chanting sometimes. And then there's, of course, the vibrations that we're actually emphasizing in the humming, which is another kind of breath practice as well, like the vibration itself. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, and allowing and expanding and noticing, right? And for me too, like this is a constant practice, like I think I'm doing every day, where I'm noticing the ways in which I'm pushing back against really experiencing deep compassion and care that maybe others are expressing towards me, the ways in which I block it and say, you know, but like actually pushing through the discomfort and imagining that my experience, my body and my mind are being filled with this energy, you know, and just keep, and for me, just pushing and pushing through these barriers to really deeply, you know, hold what's being offered to me. And having this kind of mantra that says, I deserve this. Whatever care that's being offered, whatever kindness that's being offered, I deserve that. I have a right to experience care and kindness and compassion and so forth. I have a right, right? I have a right. But that's going to take us also deeper into other unresolved energies as well, other memories, other fears, you know, they're just really deep in there. And again, this energy, which again is an expression of Chenrezig as well, like this energy can take care of that if we just get out the way and allow it to do its work. Mhm. Anything else from anyone?
I would like to say a couple of things. Hey, Lama Ron. First of all, I just want to say thank you, deeply thank you. I think, I just think it's true. If no one ever mirrors back to us that we are, you know, in whatever language you call it, a child of God, or we have Buddha nature, if no one ever really mirrors that or says it, it's very difficult for it to come alive without that mirror. And so what you did by asking us to remember when or if that had ever happened, even if it didn't happen with some of the people you might have wished would have happened, but maybe there's some other people that it did happen. And I mean, I just had a couple of memories of some things from a long time ago. Just made me want to weep, and it just brings back the truth of that, right? And so, and I think even you're teaching this, like even you're saying to us, this is true. You have this bit, but all this stuff you have Buddha nature. You deserve this care. It's like you're extending that sight to us when you say that stuff.
Yes.
So I just want to say thank you. And I think, you know, whenever you talk about, there are a bunch of professional practitioners on it, I'm like, but what I want to tell you is, you know, I'm a therapist and an analyst too. And I want to tell you, don't ever go to a therapist or an analyst who is not going to their own therapist or analyst. and if you're a professional practitioner, don't ever go talk to them unless that person has got a person teaching them. So I cannot begin to tell you how grateful I am for this particular practice for today and for you. Okay. I just want to say all that. And then the last thing is, I couldn't hear the humming. I wonder, because I can hear your voice perfectly right now. Would you mind just taking 1 second and just humming that little tune so I can hum it later?
Oh, it's just the mantra. Like I'm just humming the way that we do it usually.
Yeah, but I haven't heard it, so.
Oh, okay. Well, here's the mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani. So you know that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So just humming that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, this is like, you know, Rachel brings up something really important, like whoever your teacher is, like you should know who their teacher is. or they should have a teacher. Like, no matter how awakened and realized, you know, your teacher is, like everyone should be under the care of someone, right? So that's important. That's incredibly important. And also this, we need like the most profound, amazing gift that I've gotten many times. I'm very grateful for that. I've gotten many times over and over. It's just for someone to reflect back to you your own nature, your own whatever lovability, your own capacity to experience care. I remember like times where like that mirroring happened in different ways, and it was so life-changing for me. Like it was just really like, oh my God, you know, it's just that reaction of saying, wow, you know, what is that? Like, what is that? And it's you. Like it's your sweetness, your goodness, even for those of you who are like difficult people. I know several of you are. Even if you're difficult, like when someone like, and you get lost in that narrative that, oh, I'm really difficult. Some of us do, and I do too. Like I get lost in some of those narratives. When someone comes along, they mirror back to you your gentleness, your like softness, your tenderness, and you're like, oh, you know, then you're like, oh yeah, that's there. Like there is a tenderness beneath whatever I perceive as being kind of rough. Right. But in any case, I know there's one more person, Fen. I know we're
Hi,
all...
I'll keep it quick. I just wanted to wish you a safe journey over to the UK and tell you that there's a really sweet energy of spring here. So you're gonna have a warm welcome from the land and from everybody, I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you. I so appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Fen is one of our team members for our retreats, helping us to make our retreats more accessible and open, and we can't wait to get there. So thank you, Fen. Thank you, everyone in the UK. I'll be there at some point tomorrow, Tuesday. And we'll be bringing, of course, some of these practices over in some of the venues. So I'll be with Radical Dharma London. You know, I think Radical Dharma London is the last Radical Dharma community group that I know of that's still going, like separately. So Radical Dharma, all kinds of places we're going to be teaching at, and of course our one day retreat at Portsmouth, South Sea Sangha as well next Sunday. That's coming up. But anyway, or at some Sunday. I think that is it. For me, and as we begin to kind of wrap up today, just making sure we offer the merit, the energy, the intentions of this really precious space, offering all this energy out to all beings, that all beings may know and connect to their profound, innate tenderness and compassion and love, right, and gentleness, right? Even if we have to fight to be in the world, may there be gentleness and tenderness beneath, right, that work, right? And for those of us who still fight and we still organize and we're still trying to create space for ourselves and our communities to be safe, may that fight always be supported by deep care, deep love, deep compassion, and tenderness. May we never lose connection to the tenderness as we have to fight and organize, right? So may both of those be together, and ultimately, may we all get free from all suffering. May we all be free from suffering one day, and it is possible, and we're going to get there. May it be so. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you to Eric again for just like this incredible care, above and beyond always. Eric does much more for us than is in his job description. And thank you to everyone. And I'll see some of you in person over the next 2 weeks in the UK, and then we'll be back in May for Medicine Buddha and everything. Mhm. All right. Any announcements, Eric, or we're set?
Good to go. Peace, y'all. Thanks for being here. Take really good care of yourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.